This is Pixelated Audio, episode 86, and today you're listening to the music of Dragon Fighter for the NES.
Alright, welcome back to the bi-weekly video game music and retro gaming podcast, Pixelated Audio. We're the hosts, Brian and James, and in this episode, we're focusing on the music from yet another Natsume NES title called Dragon Fighter.
Thanks for joining us today, and yes, we have done a few Natsume-focused episodes at this point, but Dragon Fighter has a really action-packed soundtrack that we think deserves some attention.
Yeah. Anyways, we're still kind of working out the kinks with our recording situation, but within the next episode or so, I think we'll have it all kind of ironed out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like kind of back on track. And, with all these changes, we're even more pumped to get back into our groove, because it feels like, I don't know, the last month, it feels like we're floating and recording. It's like hard to determine what we're going to do next, because we aren't sure where we're going to record or when we're going to record. And so
right.
I think getting back into our groove is going to just re-spark and re-get us going in the Pixelated Audio groove.
Oh yeah, doing that last episode kind of on the fly at the new place, and then coming back today to record at the usual place, and then planning on moving stuff over, very soon to the new place. It is feel kind of hectic and weird, but it's fun at the same time to kind of mix things up and get a fresh start again.
Yeah, and I think that our audio quality will improve a little bit maybe in the new place. There's a little bit less noise bouncing and stuff like that, so I think it'll be kind of interesting to see how it turns out, or it could be completely opposite and be a total disaster. I don't know.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
Anyway, the track that brought us in was called Frozen Battle from Dragon Fighter by Kouichi Yamanishi.
Yeah, not to be confused with the 1991 Amiga title, Dragon Fighter, because there is another game called Dragon Fighter.
Any game that has Dragon in the title, they all get lumped together, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, Dragon Fighter, that's a pretty generic name anyway.
Right.
I mean, you can kind of guess you're fighting dragons, or you are a dragon, or something to do with dragons.
Yeah, it's got to have dragons.
Something to do with fighting.
I don't know. Sometimes I wouldn't be surprised if there's a game that has dragon in the title and there's actually no dragons. So.
Oh yeah, that was big in the 80s. Maybe they just put that on there as a buzzword. Yeah. Anyways, track's awesome though. It's really energetic. The melody and the harmony. I guess it mellows out a little bit more. It starts off kind of explosive, then it's a little bit slower, but with that bass, that the bass, and the percussion, it does make the track feel a lot more action-packed, because the harmony and melody aren't really moving all that quick.
Right. Yeah, the percussion in this track is really good. I think that is kind of what really drives this track forward and gives it that, real fast-paced feel. Everything is kind of sharp and choppy, and it's juxtaposed against the more drawn out and kind of echoey type notes that are going on. So this track has a lot going on in the sense that it feels very different than what you would expect. I guess it sounds very choppy and chaotic, but when you really listen to it, it's not really that chaotic.
Yeah, so Dragon Fighter is a side-scrolling action platformer released for the Famicom in Japan in 1990, developed by Natsume and published by Towa Chiki.
Yeah, and Towa Chiki is a Japanese toy company that also produced a handful of Famicom games in the late 80s and early 90s. There were some Sherlock Holmes games, Idol Hakenden, and A Week of Garfield, which, if you guys have never seen A Week of Garfield, it might make you want to claw your eyes out at first, but it's a fun game. I've really grown to love it quite a bit.
It's for the Famicom.
Yeah, it's a Famicom only Garfield game, so it's kind of neat.
What do you do?
Well, you play as Garfield, and you're looking for Odie, and you can kind of jump, and it's really kind of ugly, but the speed run of it is actually really fun to watch. And there was a kind of a back and forth battle for the world record for a while. It's pretty neat.
Why is it called the Week of Garfield?
Because you play through, you start on like Sunday, or you start on Monday, and then you work all the way through Sunday, and on Sunday you find Odie. So, and there's bosses and pies and frogs, and it's interesting looking game. You should definitely check out a video for it. It's just a really ugly game that's got some not so great music as well. So.
That's funny though. Towa Chiki, they have a Garfield game, some Sherlock Holmes games, and they have Idol Hakenden. What a weird mix. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't
well,
know.
you get started out and you want to try to just soak up as much as you can and see if it picks up. Apparently it didn't though.
Yeah.
But 1992, Dragon Fighter was brought to North American audiences by a company called SOFEL Corp.
Yeah, it kind of strikes me as odd. So SOFEL was primarily a software engineering lab. That's where the name comes from. SOF Engineering Lab.
Yeah.
SOFEL. It's kind of weird that, the Japanese always like to do that with,
Yeah.
And their main focus was creating software that generated COBOL programs for their clients. But they also did a few video games as well. Casino Kid 1 and 2, TKO Super Fighting Championship, Speedball, which a lot of people like. I'm not really a fan of that. Fish Dude, which is a kind of a neat little Game Boy game.
Yeah, I've seen you play that one. I've seen actually some other people play that one too.
Yeah, and Wall Street Kid. Casino Kid, Wall Street Kid. I don't know, man.
Well, kids, just like, Dragon, putting kid in a title was pretty popular back in the day.
But isn't it interesting, though, that this company that, a software engineering lab that has these high profile clients, they're making, they're engineering software for them to generate, specific data and stuff that they need. And then they're like, oh, let's just make a few Famicom games on the side.
Yeah, I mean, in the 80s and 90s, video games were just blowing up, and anybody that had any access to computers was just making games.
It's like
apparently.
a stapler company is making video games too or something.
Well, yeah, when we covered, I don't remember which game, but the company started out as a chemicals company.
Oh, that was Illusion Blaze. That was Korea too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
but
yeah.
still, it's like,
Yeah.
everybody. So
if you got enough money, you can try to make a game. But anyway, to reiterate, in 1990, the game came out in Japan. In 1992, it came here in the States.
Yeah. So let's get into our next track. This is actually the mode my phone is in right now. It's called Don't Disturb, composed by Kouichi Yamanishi.
You just heard Don't Disturb, composed by Kouichi Yamanishi for Dragon Fighter on the NES.
Now, this track, I think this whole soundtrack has kind of almost like a ninja feel to me.
It does kind of feel like that.
It's really hard because I think Mizutani's driver, which this soundtrack is using, has, I guess with the echoes and stuff, it has a little bit of like a mysterious kind of like, almost like a kind of a cloak and dagger kind of feel that gives me that vibe of like a ninja. But this game is very much not that type.
Right.
So it's kind of, I don't know, for me playing the game and listening to the soundtrack, it just doesn't fit very well. But this track is awesome.
Oh, yeah. And I think what gives me that kind of ninja feel that you brought up was that, like I said before in the first track, that it's very sharp and precise sounding, but then there's also a lot of subtleties to the track. Like there's a lot going on that you can really kind of dive into and really listen. But I like this track. I think it starts out a little bit more aggressive and it's kind of has a little bit more of a worrisome feel to it. Like like things are not so happy, I guess. Like it's not as fun, I guess. It's more dangerous, but
a little more on the edge.
Yeah, I like this track quite a bit. I mean, this soundtrack in general is just, it blew me away the first time I heard it.
It's fun. It's just a fun NES soundtrack. There's not really anything, breaking the bounds of what the hardware can do. It's just Mizutani's driver is just incredible. And these guys, we've talked about Natsume before. I mean, there was Shadow of the Ninja we did an episode on, which was Iku Mizutani's work. Mitsume ga Touru, which was Hiroyuki Iwatsuki, and now Dragon Fighter with Kouichi Yamanishi. It's kind of like the holy trinity of Natsume.
Oh, yeah.
So we've kind of looked at all of the really kind of powerhouse games, and this just fits right in with the rest.
Oh yeah, I mean, and Natsume is just, they're known for amazing games and amazing music, which, I mean, to us, there's nothing better that you can get than good games with great music. So
yeah, going back to this track, I really like that groove with the bass and the percussion line, the noise channel. Do you want to hear that?
Oh,
it's so smooth. I just think it just sounds, I don't know, like funky. It's an awesome groove. Let's just listen. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was kind of alluding to with the subtleties too, because I mean, we turned off some channels and this track was still really awesome by itself.
Yeah.
I mean, that there, just with the extra layers, just makes it so much more complex feeling, and there's so much more to kind of really dive into and listen to this track over and over and kind of pick new things that you're focusing on.
Yeah, and in the Mitsume ga Toru episode, we really listened to that Mizutani sound driver and the echoes and the delays and stuff. And we're going to be listening to that a little bit more as we get into the episode. But I just think that the track has a lot of really minor little things that you can pick up that make it more interesting, more exciting to listen to, even for an action game, where your focus is on the screen.
Right.
Yeah. So Kouichi Yamanishi, he also went by the handle Ukari Yamanishi. He worked at Natsume a few years under Mizutani, much like Hiroyuki Iwatsuki, and he left the company just a year after Iwatsuki joined. And I found this out because I actually asked Iwatsuki, I said, hey, do you know anything about Yamanishi-san? And he's like, not really, other than that, he was there and then he left about a year after I joined. They didn't work together, but, they all worked kind of under Mizutani. So that's why I think their styles, they bounced a lot off of, each other as far as, maybe not communication, but like they bounced a lot of music off each other. So you see a similar style maybe.
Oh yeah, and Mizutani was just an amazing teacher. I'm sure that like to work under is just insane.
Well, it makes me question what his teaching methods were, because we listened to his music and then we listened to kind of his kohai music, right? The people under him, and it sounds very, very similar. I wonder if it was just like a driver of like, this is the sound that you need to do and here's why. That's something that we need to ask him at one point, but I feel that that's maybe his mentoring had a really strong influence on these composers. Oh
yeah, and just in any other field, when you start out and you're working under someone that's mentoring you, you probably take on a lot of what they're teaching you and what they do, and then as you grow in your career, you start to experiment and put your own stamp and signature on your style. So I could see that, especially with Yamanishi and Iwatsuki starting out under Mizutani, that he's going to play a huge role on what they sound like, and then as they grow, I mean, we saw that, Iwatsuki just grew into a beast of a composer.
So. Right. So Yamanishi, he also did a few other games, not a lot really, but there were a few. So there's Amazing Penguin on the Game Boy, World Boxer for the Famicom, Dragon Fighter, obviously for the NES, and he helped Iku Mizutani with Shadow of the Ninja. And so we had mentioned him before when we did that episode. We didn't really get into too much. We probably got into the same amount of detail because this is all I could find.
I know.
He left and he kind of, disappeared from the face of the planet. So not really too sure. But Iwatsuki is like, yeah, I haven't talked to that guy since I was, since he left Natsume. So I guess, maybe I don't know.
Now I want to go back to that Shadow of the Ninja episode and see how much we actually did talk about Yamanishi.
We probably said the same exact thing, similar thing, because that's pretty much all I could find. Anyways, let's get into our next track. This is called Into the Depth, composed by Kouichi Yamanishi for Dragon Fighter on the NES.
right, that was Into the Depth, composed by Kouichi Yamanishi for Dragon Fighter on the NES.
Now, this track, actually, I really like. I love
this track.
I mean, I really like... Okay, so in the beginning, this is what I like about it. You get that one solo square wave by itself, and then the accompanying, harmony square wave comes in with it, and it's like it's buddy. It's like, I think we talked about this before in another NES game that we had, covered, where it's like, it's almost like two-player mode at that point. You're really like working together, and you can just hear these guys like bros, like bro square waves, just fight and attack. It's just really cool. I like it.
Yeah, and I liked how it seemed like they were slightly off. It gave it like this kind of soft, echoey feel to the whole thing. It was very... this track didn't feel so ninja-like we mentioned before. This one felt more fantasy-esque. It had that kind of more glowing, castle-y magic feel that I think this game really should have had for some of the other tracks. But this track is just so good to me. I love this track so much. I like the more flute parts right before the loop are just so good. I mean, this track was probably one of the first tracks I heard in this game, and I was just like, whoa. Like, Brian, we have to do this.
Yeah. I wonder about the square wave channels. What's doing the echo there? Do you want to listen and see if we can kind of pinpoint it? So we'll listen to square wave 1. We'll listen to both, and then we'll listen to square wave 1 and then 2 by itself. I think that might give us a chance, because I'm pretty sure there's a key off in there, and it's not just an echo that we're hearing. It's just going back and forth real quick, rather than utilizing the echo, which is played later. But let's listen. Maybe we can figure it out. So I was wrong, actually. The second square wave is actually there. It's just very, very quiet, and you can't hear it. So it kind of has this mysterious kind of, almost like echo to it. It's almost like a delay on that channel. But when we tear them apart here, we'll be able to hear it a little better. So here's just square wave 1 by itself. You can hear that minimal echo. Just right at the end of that clause, I guess, that phrase.
And it's really cool how, just putting it right there at the end makes you feel like it's been there the whole time, for the entire, progression. But it's just at the end, and it makes you feel like, oh, okay, this whole thing has been echoing. And then the next one, it's like the whole thing is echoing, but it's not.
Yeah. So let's go back and listen to the second square wave and see kind of how that fits into the equation. All right, so that's interesting, right? So the second square wave is actually the predominant one out of the two. So that first one we were hearing, it was a little soft, and I was like, oh, maybe that's just how it is, and we're not, we're hearing the other one, it's going to be softer. But square wave 2 is actually much more predominant,
right,
and has very little echo on it. But both channels, if you notice, have their own echo.
Right.
So I think that's what's giving us this even more rounded and longer kind of mysterious trailing sound.
Yeah, the notes together, they give me that 80s airbrushed movie cover look. So that's what gives me that fantasy, you see all the shiny skin with all the blown out airbrushed highlights and stuff like that. That's what this track really reminds me of.
Yeah. So anyways, going back to the game, if there was any doubt, with a game called Dragon Fighter, it's a fantasy world setting in a land called Baljing. And this once peaceful land is now terrorized by an evil warlock named Zabaong.
Yeah, that's a hard one. It's
is that, how do you spell that? Is that right?
Yeah, it's Zabbaong.
Zabaong.
I think we'd have to talk to the writers from this game to figure out how you actually pronounce that properly.
Yeah, Zabaong. And his army of monsters, right? So it's the evil warlock, and he brings this army of monsters, and he's terrorizing this peaceful land. and will stop but nothing until it's left in ruins.
Right.
All's not lost, though. A guardian deity of the land known as Dragon Spirit decides to take vengeance on Zabaung by bringing the statue of a legendary warrior back to life.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the most unique story like we've seen with a lot of different games. I mean, it's kind of just let's get right to it.
I would say like 80 to 90% of the games that we look at, the story is about this.
Well, early on, you couldn't really do a whole lot, but I like that they tried and they put something to it. But Dragon Fighter, like we mentioned before, is a side-scrolling action platformer spanning 6 levels, each with a boss at the end. You play as the legendary warrior brought back to life. It's the same as most action platformers. In this game, you can run, jump, crouch, and melee attack with a sword. You can also shoot projectiles by holding down B until the character starts to flash. Now, the type of projectiles fired depend on the color of the player's outfit, which change by picking up different labeled items. There's green, which is labeled with a G, which is the default color. There's B for blue and R for red.
And the difference between these different power-ups is, I guess they're power-ups. Maybe there's different suits.
Yeah, just different attacks, I guess.
Yeah, so green, I think, is just like a standard kind of beam shot that comes out. Blue, I believe, is a homing shot, so it'll kind of like whip around to the nearest enemy. And then red is kind of like this wave, I think that's what it was. And so they all have kind of their own unique spin, I guess, but for me, it didn't really matter.
Yeah, it was a neat little thing to kind of make the game feel a little bit more, exciting. You could change costumes and different attacks that you could use in different ways, which was nice. Right. It broke up the monotony, I think.
Yeah.
But underneath the life gauge, there is another gauge, and this is what really makes the game fun and kind of unique. This is the metamorphosis gauge. So this gauge will slowly fill up by killing enemies, and once the gauge is at least halfway filled, the player can transform into a powerful dragon.
Yeah, that's the coolest part of the game. Like, for sure, like I was thinking that the game, when I first played it, I was thinking that, man, this is gonna just be a little bit monotonous here. Like, it's just going to be the same, because your guy, when he swings and attacks, he just there's not a lot of animation. It's kind of generic.
Well, he kind of looks like a Robin Hood kind of guy, and then it kind of reminds me a little bit of like Zelda 2.
Yeah. Like, who's just got that burnt, like 3-frame animation.
Yeah. And when I was actually on Twitch, and I was just lurking in different people's chats, and I came across Late Night Retro, and he was playing this game, and he's someone I'm in their chat a lot, and I was just like, whoa, this game is, it's kind of neat. And I was like, wow, this music. And then when he transformed into a dragon, I was like, what? Like, you can transform into a dragon? Like, this game is now it's really cool.
Now it's got some cool points.
Yeah, and changing into the dragon is pretty cool. So when you hit the A button to jump, all you have to do is hold up on the D-pad to turn into the dragon, which I thought was kind of neat that you have to get airborne before you turn into the dragon.
Yeah, well, the dragon is only flying, right?
Right.
So you have to be in the air to use it. You can't walk around. So I guess that makes sense.
I think it was like a way to save on drawing sprites. There's no standing dragon sprite. It's just flying only.
Yeah, so once in dragon mode, the game will start this auto scroll to the right while the dragon kind of hovers around, essentially turning into like a shoot 'em up, right? And like you would expect, the player's colors affect the dragon's attacks as well. So if you had the red one, I think, has this down shooting missile. It's not really that good. I didn't like that one.
Yeah.
But all the other power ups mimic what the dragon's abilities are too. So
yeah, I thought that was kind of neat that it kept with that theme, that the different colors meant different dragon attacks. So you could really see that there was some room to kind of play the way that you wanted to.
Right. Now, one unfortunate aspect of turning the dragon is that you couldn't turn around.
Yeah, that was a bummer.
That sucked, because I would turn into the dragon and I'd have enemies behind me, and then I was screwed, because you can't turn around. You have to like try to let them fly by you, but they never do. This game is hard.
Yeah.
And so
it's very hard.
Yeah, so they could have, I don't know, maybe they could have done something about that. I don't know.
Yeah, even if it was just a single frame animation flipping around. I mean, the dragon's pretty big too, so you're taking a risk by being the dragon by taking more damage. So
yeah, but you can unleash hell, which is pretty awesome too. So once the gauge is depleted, you turn back into your human form, and you can turn back at any point pressing down on the D-pad and A at the same time.
Yeah, so it's nice that you can change for just a few seconds if you want, and then go back to being your human mode and allow the gauge to kind of continue filling up instead of depleting it completely. But we did find something pretty funny in the notes that basically in an instruction manual, it said that you can transform back by mashing A repeatedly, but that's not true. it actually doesn't work. So it's pretty funny that it's published out there that this is how you change back, but that's not how they programmed the game to work.
Right. And I think that if you play the game with the dragon changing in mind and you utilize that rather than just, play as a human as long as you can, play as a dragon as long as you can, and then back, I think if you really consider when to change and when to change back, even if it's for a few seconds, that a level of strategy might actually make the game a little bit more enjoyable. And maybe that is what was intended. It's really hard to say, but I feel that, changing the dragon for only certain spots was a little bit better. And I was able to save my life a little bit more because, some areas you have to shoot a ton of enemies. Being the dragon is great, but sometimes you need to be able to walk on the ground to take out, the bad guys coming at you. So maybe a little bit of back and forth is a little bit better than trying to draw it out.
Oh yeah, I talked to the guy that has the world record for this game for speedrunning, and a guy by the name of Kha'Zix, and he was saying that this game is a very difficult casual playthrough. And,
it's hard as hell, man.
Yeah, and then the speedrun really depends on optimizing, changing between the dragon and the person to be able to move quickly. But there is quite a bit of RNG in this game, I guess, that really gets in the way of giving you a consistent run.
Right. RNG being random generated numbers, just in case you're not in the speedrun lingo.
Well, I'm just in any game when you're playing it. If an enemy is going to drop something one time and not drop it the next time.
Exactly.
It's just this level of randomness that some games have programmed into them that can be fun, but they can also be a nightmare.
Yep.
But in addition to the different attacks and movements and transformations in this game, there are items that help you along the way, like restoring potions, flowers that help the metamorphosis gauge go faster, and a ring that's capable of destroying all enemies on the screen. And at the end of each stage, you will also receive a staff that increases your health, and the staff also partially refills your health bar for the start of the next stage, but it doesn't completely refill it.
That's where I got a little bit ticked off because, I got through this really tough boss battle, and these bosses are challenging. The game is just hard itself. So by the time I got to the boss, my health was at maybe half or maybe less. And by the time I beat the boss, my health is like one little bar left. Right. So when I got the staff and replenished, it's just like this little sliver goes. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, that's like really, that's all I got to work with for the next round. It's tough.
Yeah. And as a demonstration of how difficult this game is, not only are you not getting full refills for beating bosses and things like that, but you only get 3 lives for the entire game, and you don't really get more lives. And once those 3 lives are gone, that's it. Yeah, it's game over. You start from the beginning. But when you do die in a level, you get to go back to the beginning of that level. So say you're in level 3 and you get halfway through and you die, you're going to go back to the beginning of level 3 unless you have no more lives left, and then it's over.
And they call that your continues.
Right.
Yeah. It was tough.
You basically get 3 continues, no lives.
So I streamed this the other night, actually, for about half an hour. And within the first 30 seconds of the game, I had already gotten 3 game overs.
Right.
Yeah.
It's brutal, but it's
tough.
It's fun. I mean, I think the music helps make it feel a little more playable. I think learning how the enemies move and changing in and out of the dragons and stuff make it fun.
Yeah.
I really, when I first saw the game, I thought it was very interesting looking, that I ended up, after I was done watching Late Night Retro play, I decided to, pop it on
give it a shot.
And just try it. And I was like, wow, this actually is, he made it look a little easier than it is. But this game I thought it was kind of neat.
Well, the control is okay. They're a little bit wonky, the controls, but once you get used to them, I was able to make it through the first level without dying. It's once you get kind of used to it, the clunkiness around it, the cumbersome changing and back and forth, it was still fun. There's things about the game that I still enjoy.
Yeah, and that's what I love about retro games compared to modern games is most of the time when you pop in a modern game and you start playing, you might get some game overs or some deaths, but it's pretty smooth transition towards the end.
They hold your hand pretty well.
Yeah, and then in retro games, they didn't have the same space to make a grand, massive game that's going to take you a single playthrough, not dying, is going to take you hours. But
it was more figure it out.
Yeah, you play this game and you're going to have this one game for months, and you may eventually figure out how to beat it in that time. But that's what I really like about it. Yeah. It makes you feel good when you start to figure it out.
Yeah, well, the aspect of the game that I like the most is the music, so let's get into another track. This is called Can You Chain Up by Kouichi Yamanishi.
You just heard Can You Chain Up, composed by Kouichi Yamanishi for Dragon Fighter on the NES.
This track is actually my favorite track in the game.
Yeah, it's a really, really good one.
Yeah, very Mitsume ga Touru.
Yeah, that was one of the first things I noticed about it. But, I mean, it's really driving and fun. It has a really good energy to it. It's not, like, overly somber or scary or anything like that. It's just, it sounds like a lot of fun.
Another ninja kind of track to me.
Oh, yeah,
it almost sounds like a little Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah.
Something like that. I don't know. Those scales, the echo effects, the delay. This is a classic Natsume track in like every sense of the meaning. I think,
It's very stylish. There's like you said, there's lots of little subtle touches going on that are just kind of like, like leveled up to, just a higher A game, I guess.
Yeah. And it's a relatively short loop. I mean, it doesn't really do anything too crazy. There's a few different phrases in there and then it kind of repeats. But it's still really cool, energetic, fast action, platforming kind of track. I really like it. Let's move into another track. This is called The Initiative of a Ghost, composed by Kouichi Yamanishi.
You just heard Initiative of a Ghost, composed by Kouichi Yamanishi for Dragon Fighter on the NES. Now, this track, I think, is less fantasy and less ninja-like. It's a little more like poppy and kind of fun, but it has its kind of darker elements, and I felt it had more of a story-like feel to it, like it was going through different chapters.
Well, you got the back and forth, right? You got that part where it goes do-do-do-do-do, and then it goes do-do-do-do. Yeah, God, that was a really bad explanation. But you know what I mean? Like, It has the high end, and then it kind of the response to that is that low end, kind of goes a few octaves lower, and kind of reiterates on that same notion. And, when we were listening to this, we both stopped the music, like, maybe halfway in, and we looked at each other and we're like, we know this track. Mitsume ga Touru. It's got to be Mitsume ga Touru. We were 1,000% sure. So we just took like a 25-minute break to try to figure out which Mitsume ga Touru track this was, or it sounds like. And we didn't really come to a conclusion. But man, doesn't that... I feel like I know this track so well.
Yeah, because there's that part that's kind of in the middle that has a very Castlevania Mega Man feel to it. And I know that I mentioned that in the episode. We couldn't quite find it, and we didn't want to spend like all day listening to the entire episode in its entirety. But it felt very familiar to us. And at one point when we couldn't find it, we're like, maybe it wasn't right. And I was like, no, like this, like we both at the same time felt like we'd heard this track before.
Yeah, and we both said Mitsume ga Touru.
Yeah.
Like, it's, I don't know, maybe one of you guys listening could just send us a note, be like, oh, you guys, it was just this track. It's almost identical. And then it'll put our minds at ease.
Yeah, which we thought was interesting because this game, Dragon Fighter, came out 2 years before Mitsume ga Touru. So so we were kind of curious as to what it was. We even
where the influence came from.
Yeah, we even took a look back at very, very briefly at Shadow of the Ninja to see if that other Natsume game.
Right. Now, that first part is very different. That wasn't the part that we recognized. It was that kind of B section where it kind of goes into the progression, the downward progression.
Yeah.
And then it goes
like
up.
Dun 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 dun. And I was like, that sounds like Castlevania to me. But
yeah. I do like that bass in the beginning, how it kind of zips around. It's actually not bending a note. It's iterating on all the notes in that I guess that scale, and then shoots back around. It's kind of interesting. You want to just hear that bass real quick?
Oh yeah.
Interesting to me, anyway. It would have been really interesting if we got that echo effect on the bass line as well on this triangle channel. But no, it's only on the square waves. But still, I think it's pretty cool. Still gives you that kind of mysterious kind of vibe. I like it.
Yeah, and this track I just thought was fun. It was just really liked it. It had so much going on for it, and it, like I said before, it felt like it had almost like story elements to it, where it was, 1 minute was more fun and kind of poppy, and the next minute it gets a little more dangerous and fast paced. And I always like that when that happens in a track.
Yeah. Well, speaking of dangerous, we got some boss music lined up. Let's listen to Boss 1, and we'll be right back. All right, that was Boss 1, composed by Kouichi Yamanishi for Dragon Fighter on the NES.
It's a very frantic boss track. I mean, that's exactly what you want. You want to feel uncomfortable. I like how the track feels like towards the loop. It's like it's wanting to build, and it just feels like it keeps getting crammed in there, and it's not going up, and it feels like it's ready to explode, which I really like.
When I hear it, I just hear the that classical piece in the Hall of the Mountain King, composed by Edvard Grieg. And I just hear that over.
Just a much more frantic and dangerous version.
Yeah, with a little bit of white noise in there.
Yeah.
It's all right. I mean, it's quick. It's like 40-something seconds. And it serves its purpose. The bosses in this they have a lot of repetition to them, so the track kind of fits the boss. Anyways, let's get into our next track. This is Boss 2.
You just heard Boss 2, composed by Kouichi Yamanishi for Dragon Fighter on the NES.
Now, this is what I'm talking about for a boss track. This is cool. I mean, it's still short. It's actually shorter than the last one, but it's a little bit more creative.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, and I think compared to the first one, I think Boss 2 feels more chaotic, whereas Boss 2 feels more controlled. It feels dangerous, but it feels more like either the boss or you are in control, whereas this one feels like it's kind of up for grabs who's going to win this fight.
Right. Well, it's interesting to me because that first boss track is very staccato, right? It's like da 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 da, you know. And this is a little bit more like a normal level track. It's a little more fluid and full, and there's a lot more bends and different articulation with the notes. There is a very strong lead, or that melody is very strong because both square waves are playing the exact same thing together, so it gives it a very, almost a little bit of timbre in there, like you hear a little bit different notes. And so I think that this track altogether is a much more enjoyable boss track to listen to.
Yeah.
It's hard to concentrate on boss music when you're playing, but I think that for me, I would rather hear something more like this, short, sweet, and has its own kind of uniqueness to it rather than kind of like a rehash of an old classic tune.
Oh yeah. I always liked it. I mean, it is kind of neat to hear how old classical music gets translated into 8-bit sound and stuff like that. I mean, we've heard plenty of really good ones, but
Furnace.
Yeah, I was just thinking Matt Furnace.
Yeah, the Lemming stuff. Oh yeah.
But it's always great to see more original stuff, to get to see what this composer was thinking about, or what they felt would make great boss music or just level music, and it's nice. I like that.
Yeah. No, the square waves aren't really doing anything that crazy, but I think the bass and percussion sound pretty cool. So we can listen to that if you'd like. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That sounds like the beginning of Bionic Commando. I like that. It's simple, but I think it still gave the track a lot more, I don't know, diversity from something else. You know, it's still fast and furious, but yeah, I like it. Anyways, so we kind of talked about the gameplay, the graphics, the look, the feel. I think this game is pretty ugly.
I can see that. I think that I have a little bit more enjoyment out of the graphics than you do, I guess.
I like the backgrounds. I think they're really pretty. You know, the textures and stuff like that are okay, but I think some of the bosses and some of the enemies are really nice. But I think the animation for the main character that you play as is a little bit weak. It's a 2-color sprite that has like a 3-frame animation. When you're jumping in the air, he looks exactly the same as when he's standing on the ground. There's not much to it, and that, I don't know. I feel like they could have put a little extra emphasis on the main character at least.
Well, when I first saw this game, I didn't realize. I think I popped in and they were already Late Night Retro was already playing the game, and so I didn't know what the game was called or who had made it. But at first glance, it gave me a Shadow of the Ninja feel because the sprite is very simple, like in Shadow of the Ninja. I mean, there's no actual face to the character.
Right.
There's just like a block where the face goes. It's very simple color schemes, but there's a lot going on in the backgrounds. Like it looks like snowfall and like different like web-like organic features that are going on. There's these giant sprites in the background, which are really cool. I mean, some of these backgrounds are really gorgeous.
Yeah, some of the backgrounds are really nice. Yeah, I do agree.
But it really gave me that Shadow of the Ninja feel. So it immediately gave me like a Natsume
Vibe.
feel. And then when I found out, oh, this is actually Natsume, this is cool. I do think that the sprite could have had a little bit more detail, and maybe that's because they had the dragon in there too, that they were like, well, you don't want to do so many different versions since he does have other animations or something. I don't know.
I just have a hard time believing that they couldn't add an extra color to the sprite. Maybe they didn't need it so much, but when, for example, like when you slash your sword, right, he holds the sword behind him kind of like Conan style, right?
Right.
And then when he, thrusts it forward, it moves like the same level that he's holding it, but like a head. So it looks like you're shooting like a sword out of your eyeballs, and then you throw it back. It's just, I don't know. It just didn't grab me the right way. But I did look, going back to what I said earlier, I do appreciate the game. There's things I like about it. Graphics weren't a selling point for me.
Yeah, it does feel like the main character got a little bit less excitement given to him than some of the other characters. I think the enemies, there was some really cool enemies, like these giant caterpillar type things.
Oh, that worm!
And,
it was the boss of stage 2, I think.
Yeah,
and it would come out of the ground, and it would like circle around, and when you hit it, it would deflect in a different direction, and you had to keep hitting it because it would keep coming at you.
Right. And
it would like just deflect just enough over. That was a cool fight. Anyways.
Yeah. Now, I thought like the main character's pose was cool with the holding the sword, kind of Conan-like, and you crouch down too. And I was like, oh wow, this is actually kind of neat. It did seem a little bit simple, and I do wonder if that had to do something with the different color changes. They didn't want to make so many because then they have to make all the different colors, or what was really going on there. Maybe it was just nice to keep them simple. Like I said, Shadow of the Ninja sprite is very simple for the main characters, but they don't change color.
But I feel like the animation for Shadow of the Ninja, it had more frames, maybe it was a little bit more thought out and detailed. But Shadow of the Ninja 2 also came out quite a bit later, right?
Yeah, and there was a lot more actions that the main characters in Shadow of the Ninja could do. They could hang from things and flip up things and attack, and they had different weapons. And this was a little bit more simple, but I did think the game was pretty good looking. I think some of the bosses were really crazy. Like some of the sprites in this game and some of the background images are just huge.
Right.
And your character is really small. That's one thing to be noted, and that might have to do with the fact that you turn into a large dragon later on. But your character feels very tiny, so it gives this big, massive, expansive, environment feel, which I thought was kind of neat. You see games like Mitsume Touru where it's pretty zoomed in, and your character is really big, even though he's short.
In relationship to everything around you.
Yeah, so I liked it. It was very simple looking, and the color scheme is very simple. it felt very early, I guess. Maybe a little earlier than 1990.
But the thing is, it's not that early.
Yeah.
It's not that early, James. But, you know, I don't know. Maybe Natsume was just like, it'll sell.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's get into our next track. This is actually from the last level of the game. It's called the Dragon Fighter.
You just heard the Dragon Fighter, composed by Kouichi Yamanishi for Dragon Fighter on the NES.
It's a lot of Dragon Fighters.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have a whole lot to say about it because this, I don't know, it's not, it's a cool track. Don't get me wrong. It's just, it doesn't really do a lot for me. It's kind of like da 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 da.
Yeah.
And then it's over. There's a few little kind of like pops and rolls and stuff in there that I think are a little bit interesting to listen to, kind of ear candy thrown in. That is a very Natsume kind of, you know, accent to throw on the track. But other than that, it didn't really do a whole lot for me.
Yeah, I think for me, if I didn't know that this was a track that comes later on in the game, I would have kind of expected it to be a later on in the game type track. It feels very, you know, like all or nothing, balls to the wall, like everything's falling apart, get to the end type level. And even the music itself feels like while you're playing one note, you're already ready to play the next note. It just feels like everything's kind of staggered and it kind of, you know, I guess if this were a logo, it would be in italics. So it just feels like everything's leaning forward, like working its way, like it's zooming
about
towards
ready
the
to
end.
fall on top of his, tripping over itself, you know.
Yeah, but in a good way. And like you said, this it's not an amazing track, but it's a solid track.
Yeah, I do like it. Like I like every track in this game. Some I like more than others. This is probably on the lower end, but still has a lot of energy. Still got that Natsume vibe.
Yeah.
Now, this game, as much as I thought it was challenging and didn't really care for the graphics, thought the gameplay was so, this is going for a ton.
Oh, yeah.
On eBay,
this game,
right?
That's one thing I like to look into is, you know, you and I are both collectors of games.
In a sense. We're not like the hardcore where we try to complete collections, but... You know, we keep our eyes on certain things that we want.
Yeah,
right?
and since we like the music for this game so much, it's one of those things where even if we don't like the game that much,
it would be nice to have.
So I looked on eBay, and this game is going for about $300 to $400 for a loose cartridge, which is
wowzer,
which is insane. And one of the interesting things when I was looking into it, for some reason I decided to look into it a little bit more, and I found this online charting website where it's called pricecharting.com. And apparently they've been tracking this game since 2008.
Oh,
and this game was relatively cheap.
It's kind of like an online Beckett.
Kind of, I guess. I didn't do too much looking into it, see what else they had on there. But I saw, oh, wow, it's Dragon Fighter on the NES. And it's talking about, you know, from 2008. So quite a few years, almost 9 years now, I guess. And this game started out very reasonable. It, you know, it looked like it was under, you know, $25 or so. And then around 2012, there was a sharp spike up to around $100, where it kind of stayed until about 2016, where it just shot up. It tripled up to about $300. And I mean, you don't even want to know how much a complete box of this game goes for. I mean, it's almost $1,300.
No.
This game complete is selling for.
Maybe because it's so uncommon. Maybe
Yeah.
It's got to be that.
That would be my guess, is that this game did not see a large release and that it's very difficult to come across cartridges. And for people that are trying to get complete sets,
Yeah.
you know, if
They're
you have
really
one,
fighting.
then you hold on to it and you say, you want a complete set, you're going to pay for it because you don't got a lot of options.
It's funny, just in the last like 10 years, that retro craze, you know, the whole craze that's going on right now, you know, we're in the thick of it now.
Yeah.
But, you know, 10, 15 years ago, there really wasn't, you know, people weren't collecting, so it was easy to get your hands on stuff. And, you know, had I known, I would have bought like 50 copies of this.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of games really jump in price in the last couple years. It's exciting to see that people love retro games enough that some people are willing to pay large amounts of money for stuff like that.
Right. You know, it's weird to me because I think my collections, like some of the games I have for like Saturn or PC Engine, even PlayStation, like some of my Famicom game stuff are going for tons of money. Like I must be sitting on a gold mine. I'm not going to sell anything, but like still, like I'm thinking to myself, like, oh my God, like I bought this at like Funkoland used, like in great condition for like $6. You know?
Yeah, and that seems to be how most of the people that I know that have, you know, crazy cartridges of things is they inherited it from their parents or they saved it from when they were a kid. Like I've mentioned Cool Kid before. He has a copy of Mr. Gimmick. And I mean, that game is just insanely expensive.
What a jerk.
Yeah, he got it from his dad. You know, he's in Sweden. They got hold the copies, and it's neat to see. You know, it's a treasured, you know, piece. But one of the other reasons that I wanted to look into it was that I recently picked up an NES, and because of speedrunning, I thought, you know, I heard that the speedrun of this game is actually a lot more fun than playing it casually. So I wanted to see, because I like to play things on actual cartridge
hardware,
instead of like a power pack or, you know, an emulator or something like that. But I was like, nope, I'm going to be playing this on a power pack if I do decide to play it. But the speedrun of this game is cool. Like I mentioned before, the current world record for it is 14 minutes and 3 seconds by Kha'Zix. He's a really awesome guy from South America. I came across him because of Aromano no Kaseki, because he actually runs that game too.
I remember you mentioned him.
Yeah, he has the second place time for that game. But
awesome.
I thought, you know, might as well mention, go check him out if you guys want to see what this game looks like ran really quickly. So
right. Anyways, let's get into our last track of the day. This is the ending track composed by Kouichi Yamanishi for Dragon Fighter on the NES.
You just heard Ending, composed by Kouichi Yamanishi for Dragon Fighter on the NES.
I like this, man. It's a really ending track sound.
Yeah, it definitely has that ending feel. It starts out kind of a little bit more dark and heavy. Yeah, I really like that part of the track. And then the transition to the brighter, more chirpy part was a little abrupt,
cheesy.
and then and it was a little bit too happy for me, but I did think it was a good track, and it was very nice. I could see it as like, now you're out of the danger and the sun has come up, and life can return back to this peaceful way that it was before. And I did like that, but it was just kind of an abrupt transition for me.
Yeah, because I like that dee, 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 and then it goes into its own kind of like pop kind of
it
style.
felt kind of like two different songs.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that a few times in ending tracks.
Yeah.
They kind of time it out to where you're seeing kind of that ending kind of cinematic or cut scene, and then as a staff roll comes, then it's like this happy kind of bouncy, cheerful, like, forget about the game, these are the guys who made it, this is their theme kind of
I like that when that happens, when it's planned out like that. So seeing, obviously listening to game music out of context sometimes is not the greatest, but in context, this could have been very nice.
Not the greatest for understanding the track maybe, but like it's always the greatest for listening.
Well, a lot of these tracks, they add so much to the visuals and the gameplay, and like boss music is not really the best music to listen to on its own, but when you're in the level, oh man, without that boss music, that would feel very different.
It would feel very weak, just not as frantic maybe. Anyways, so today we covered Dragon Fighter on the NES and Famicom, composed by Kouichi Yamanishi.
If you want to know more about the show, you can check us out online at pixelatedaudio.com for show notes and track lists. We can also be found on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Pixelated Audio. But more importantly, if you want to chat with us and others about game music, sound chips, and just gaming in general, make sure to join our Discord server, which we will attach in the show notes.
Yeah, because if you're in like an iPhone in the podcast app and you hit more on the show notes, you should see the link down there, and you can click it and it'll open up on your phone. If you don't have Discord, it's really a great way. It's kind of like the evolution of IRC. I'm still an IRC junkie, an old school, IRC guy, but Discord is a great way for people communicating. They have voice chat and stuff like that. We're going to be doing some streams and have an open voice chat, have anybody come out and be on the stream. If you want to do that, we'll if you join the server, we'll announce when we're going to do that.
Yeah, and there's already a lot of cool people in there that that have a lot of information. They're really friendly, and it's always nice to meet more people that have similar interests.
Yep. Anyway, so if you do like the show, we would always appreciate some feedback. You can give us a review and rating on iTunes. You can let us know what you like, what you don't like. And if you want to support the show, you can head over to patreon.com/pixelatedaudio and throw a few dollars our way. Keeps the show running smooth and helps us improve.
Yeah, and if you're new to our show, make sure to check out some of our past episodes. We have nearly 100 episodes now. We mentioned some really good ones that are Natsume based, which are Mitsume Touru, where we had Hiroyuki Iwatsuki on as a guest, which was amazing to talk to that composer about his game. And then there was also Shadow the Ninja, which was another Natsume game.
Yep, Mizutani. So if you guys are interested and you live somewhere on the West Coast, or you live on the East Coast and you want to travel, Mag West is coming out here, which is a Mag Fest, but done in
the West.
It's going to be in Silicon Valley. It's going to be in Santa Clara this year. And if you use the promo code, I think it ends today. So if you're going, use the promo code Pixelated Audio and you get 20% off your entry. And then also, this isn't 100% confirmed, but we believe we were asked to do a panel. So it looks like we're going to be doing a panel.
Yeah, we don't know what day, what time slot, or if it's multiple days or not. So we're still ironing out those details, but we have been asked to do some type of live show.
So in the next episode, we'll let you know the exact date and time. So if you are coming, you can check us out there. We expect maybe to have a guest joining in. We're not sure yet, but we're, like I said, working on all the details, and we're figuring out what we're actually going to do. We have some good ideas though.
Planning on how to deal with all that anxiety.
And then we are going to make it a recorded episode and put that in the feed after it's all said and done. Anyways, thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you back in a few weeks for the next episode.
always like that when that happens in a track.
Yeah. Well, speaking of dangerous, we got some boss music lined up. Let's listen to Boss 1, which is, I don't know which boss that is. It's not the first boss. It's any boss. Boss 1.